Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bold and Beautiful podcast. I'm your host, Amanda, and I've titled this week's episode, Sleeping with the Enemy. If you've watched last week already, then you definitely get the title. If you haven't watched yet, then you are about to find out exactly why I chose this title. I hope you guys had a great weekend. Mine was busy as usual. I had a really crazy week at work. Even though I work from home, I still have deadlines that have to be met. And I actually had to work yesterday, which was Sunday. And I don't normally work on Sundays. I normally do the podcast on Sundays. So I apologize to all of y'all for the podcast being late. So I've decided to go ahead and do last week and also do a bonus day. I'm going to also cover Monday because next week is my birthday. So there will not be an episode next week because my husband has a birthday surprise planned for the weekend, and I've decided just to take next week off, and I'll be back in 2 weeks. So now that we got that out of the way, let's get to our question of the week. The question of the week was, will Thomas go to prison? Will he actually pay for his crimes? This was funny, guys, because there was no need to calculate anything. 100% of you said no. Everyone said no. Thomas will not pay for any of his crimes. There you have it. The people have spoken. And I totally agree. I think you are all right. I picked out a few comments to read, so here's what you guys had to say. Speak All Day says, nope, foresters don't pay for their crimes. They cry, blink a lot, and get shipped off to international. So true. I was cracking up. Nicole Garner, 328, says, I hope he goes to jail. Not likely. Miss Pretty 7399 says, nope, not gonna happen. Ethel, and I'm probably gonna mess up your name. Hi, Ethel. Ethel McIlwain 51 says, now you know Thomas is not going to pay for anything. So true. So true. Lynn June 67 says, this really makes me angry to know that he's going to get away with this. It's been hyped up for months. Thomas did not steal the baby, but what he did to his son and leaving Emma to die without even getting help is beyond belief. I could not agree more. Gail 5954 says, has Bill Spencer ever paid for anything that he's done wrong? No. By the way, he's even a good guy now. So what's the difference between him and Thomas? I couldn't agree more. That is so true. Such a good point. Such a good point. Bill pushed Ridge out of a helicopter to try and kill him, and he got away with it. So that's a really good point. Thank you all so much for your comments. I wish I could read them all, but I can't. I just don't have time. But keep them coming. I love to hear what you guys think. The new question of the week. Will Wyatt choose Sally or Flo? I will post the question on all my socials, and I can't wait to hear what you guys think. Now let's get into the news. James Lott Jr. is having Matthew Atkinson on the Bold Breakdown. That is on AfterBuzz. Check it out because I'm sure it will be really, really good. That's all the news I have for this week. So enough with the chit chat. Let's get to the recap. So that brings us into Monday, September the 9th. The show opens at the hospital with Ridge and Thomas, and Thomas is crying and thanking Ridge for not giving up on him, and Ridge gets a call from Detective Sanchez. He needs Ridge to come to the police station as soon as possible. And then Ridge, of course, tells Thomas that he will make sure he stays out of jail. Of course he will. Of course he will. Now we head over to the jail with Shauna and Flo. Flo wants Thomas in prison as soon as he gets out of the hospital because she thinks he deserves it. Shauna, her mother, has very little faith that Thomas will serve any time at all. And of course, Flo is her daughter, so she feels horrible for Flo, and she doesn't think Flo deserves to be in jail at all. I get it. That's her daughter. Like, I get it. But Flo pretty much has given up, and she's resigned to the fact that she's going to prison. Now we head down the hall. Ridge has arrived to talk to Detective Sanchez. He wants him to leave his family alone. Okay? So he tells the detective, you need to leave my family alone. Ridge admits that Thomas made mistakes, but he didn't actually break the law. The big news is that Sanchez actually closed the Emma case because there's not enough evidence to charge anyone. Okay, that's probably true. He didn't actually hit her car with his car or anything like that. Ridge is so happy, he's like smiling from ear to ear until the detective informs him that they are going to offer Flo a deal to testify against Reese. And that basically Flo will be getting out scot-free. They'll drop all charges. She's going to get immunity. Told you guys, I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I knew that she would not serve time. So Ridge totally ridges out. Okay. And he's livid. And he's, you know how he does. Okay. And he's like, I'm going to fight this. You better believe I'm going to fight this because she needs to serve time. Basically, Sanchez tells him that it would be better for Thomas and the Forrester family in general if they agree to the deal with Flo, because it will keep them out of the tabloids and it will keep the Emma information from getting out. Of course, Sanchez opens the door as he's talking because he's about to walk out, and he tells Ridge to think it over, call Brooke, see what she says, and to let him know, because Flo could really get off completely scot-free. So guess what? Guess who's in the hallway listening? Eavesdropping. Shauna. She runs into the room to beg Ridge to set Flo free. That's convenient. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, guys, but I have to stop right here. No. Okay? I'm saying it. No. First of all, the detective would not ask Ridge. Okay? The detective would ask this question to the victims. So they wouldn't call Ridge. They would call Hope and Liam. And they would ask Hope and Liam if they would agree to the deal. I don't know. I have no idea why he's asking Ridge. It's odd to me. Okay, I just had to get that out. Next up is my very favorite part of the week. So now we head back to Thomas's room. And guess who stopped by to see him? Steffi. Steffi walks in and she is furious. She doesn't want to hear his apologies or his excuses. She is not in the mood for any of his BS, and I do not blame her. She tells him that he is sick and he's never been in love with Hope. He's obsessed with her. Of course, then Thomas tries to explain that he was trying to help her. He was trying to help Steffi get her family back and get Douglas a mother. You guys know he's doing his usual song and dance that he always does when he wants everyone to feel sorry for him. He brings up Douglas or Caroline. But like a few weeks ago, he was telling Douglas that his mom is dead and to get over it. So I don't believe anything that Thomas says. Not a word. He continues to talk to her and he begs for her forgiveness. That's not going to happen. Okay? That is not going to happen, sir. He claims he would do anything for Steffi, and he saw that her future was with Liam. Oh, that was the wrong thing to say to Steffi today. She loses it, and she starts punching him in the arm, in the chest, and he's surprised by this. But she's punching him, and she's like, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? He could have taken Hope and Liam's pain away, but he used his son. How could he do that? Using Douglas as bait. He was cruel and selfish, and she will never forgive him for what he did to her daughters. Never. And I felt so bad for Steffi because she is so upset, and she goes on to explain that she has to try to make Kelly understand why her sister and her daddy are not there anymore. And she feels so betrayed by Thomas. She just doesn't understand how he could do this to her. None of us do, Steffi. None of us do. The whole thing is disgusting. He crossed a line, and she had to come there today to look into his lying eyes and to tell him that she is going to protect herself and her daughter. She will move on, and so will Hope and Liam, but it will be without him. And he's crushed, okay? So then she leaves, and she's crushed. They're both crushed, and that's how Monday ends. So that brings us into Tuesday. The show opens at the jail with Shauna and Ridge, and Shauna is still begging for Flo's freedom. She tries to pull on Ridge's heartstrings, and she decides to go with the parent card. That's my child. You have a child, and you're trying to protect them. That's what I'm trying to do. I get it. I would do the same thing if I had a child, but I don't know that I like this deal because I feel like a lot of people are going to be really angry about this. So a few minutes later, Detective Sanchez comes back into the room, and he wants to know what Ridge has decided to do. Ridge actually says yes. He will agree to the deal without even talking to Hope, Liam, Steffi, or Brooke. I'm sorry, but that is such BS. If I were Liam or Hope, I would be livid. Or Brooke even. Or Steffi. I would be livid if I was any of them. Wow. I cannot believe that. He did not even bother to call them. And honestly, like I said before, it really wasn't Ridge's decision to make, in my opinion. And I think it's very unfair that everyone else is gonna have to suffer so that he can save Thomas. Now we head over to the visiting area. And guess who has stopped by to see Flo? Steffi. Been waiting for this. Steffi wants to know how Flo could do this to her. How dare her? And of course, Flo tries to apologize and she feels horrible, etc. But Steffi does not want to hear it. So eventually Flo just basically says, there's really nothing I could say to make it better. Right. So just be quiet, Flo. She tries to say how sorry she is. And honestly, Steffi does not care. She does not want to hear her say how sorry she is. Because that doesn't fix anything. She's still heartbroken. Steffi thinks that Flo is disgusting. She could have stopped this whole thing and she didn't. But the silver lining is seeing Flo behind bars and knowing that she'll be there for a long time. And before she leaves, she tells Flo that she really hopes that she rots in prison. Now we head over to Brooke's house with Katie, Brooke, and Douglas. Douglas wants to know when his daddy is coming home. And I'm like, this poor little guy, he really misses his daddy. Brooke takes Douglas to the cabin to see Hope and Liam to cheer him up. Donna and Katie stay and chat about Flo and how she deserves justice. A few minutes later, Brooke returns from the cabin and they start chit-chatting about how amazingly resilient Douglas is. Which then leads into talking about Thomas. Brooke thinks that Thomas should go to prison because he deserves to pay. And she also thinks that he should not be around Douglas. But she can't say that in front of Ridge. So Katie tells her she needs to be careful because she could cause a lot of trouble in her marriage. And they do all feel really sorry for Ridge. They all wish that he could see Thomas for what he really is because he needs help. And I agree, he does need help. Brooke thinks that Thomas shouldn't be around Douglas, period. Now that is going to be a problem. Then they discuss Flo and how they can't believe what she's done and they really think she needs to pay. Do you see what's happening here, guys? Multiple people are going to be angry at Ridge's decision. Back over at the jail with Shauna and Ridge, the detective brings Flo into the room to tell her about the deal with the feds. And Flo is in shock. She knows she doesn't deserve it, and she promises that one day she will make it up to Ridge and all of the Logans, and she will earn their respect back. Shauna thanks Ridge again, and she's so grateful, and then she hugs him, which makes him uncomfortable, and that's how Tuesday ends. What is Ridge thinking? Everyone is going to be livid about this. You know, he didn't have to say yes. The detective had already said previous that he was dropping the charges in the Emma case. Like, he didn't have to say yes. So that brings us into Wednesday. The show opens at Brooke's, but we're going to circle back to that in a minute. We're going to start at Flo's apartment with Shauna and Flo. They are both ecstatic that Flo has been released. She feels so relieved to be getting a second chance, and Shauna is so grateful to Ridge. And I'm like, oh no. She has hero syndrome. Okay, that's what I call it. Steffi had hero syndrome when Liam saved her in the bathtub, and she immediately thought she was head over heels in love with him, but it really was that he saved her, and it's a bond that is created. But this is making me nervous. I have to tell you, it is making me nervous. So Shauna thinks that Brooke and Hope will come around eventually, but Flo is not so sure about that. She also advises Flo that she needs to go see Wyatt and try to work on their relationship. Seriously? I do not think Sally's gonna like that one bit. Speaking of Sally, now we head over to Spencer in Wyatt's office. Sally stops by to see him. These two are hot and heavy again. They're kissing, and Sally is really turned on by Wyatt's business persona. But she wants to wait to be intimate because she's not ready. She wants to keep it PG-13. She's scared that he might hurt her again, and that is totally understandable. They have to rebuild their trust back. Wyatt says that he's willing to be patient, but then immediately says that he wants her to move back in with him. And I'm like, really, Wyatt? Really? That's not being patient. Sally needs time and she needs patience. So she kisses him and then she leaves. A few minutes later, guess who shows up? Flo. She wants to see Wyatt. And I'm like, wow, Wyatt, both women in one day. So basically, she tells him about her deal and he's very surprised. Then she apologizes for hurting him. He doesn't even really know what to say, honestly. Now we head over to Brooke's house with Ridge and Brooke. Brooke apologizes to Ridge again for pushing Thomas. And Ridge says, don't worry about it. It's okay. That's over with. Then he proceeds to tell her that Flo is going to be released today. Brooke is shocked and angry. So he continues to explain that he didn't fight the deal because he had to protect Thomas and the company. Brooke does not like that information. She doesn't give a crap about the company right now. She thinks that Thomas and Flo need to pay. She's pissed. So Ridge tries to explain that Thomas needs help, not jail. But Brooke lets him know real quick there's no way she's letting Thomas back in their house like nothing happened. And Ridge says that Thomas is paying. He's lost everything and everyone. So Brooke has very little sympathy for Thomas, and really, you can't really blame her. She then proceeds to tell Ridge that she thinks Thomas should not be around Douglas. This really ticks Ridge off. He does not agree at all. He thinks that Thomas needs Douglas and Douglas needs him. He's very upset, and he wants Brooke to be rational because he thinks she's overreacting. But Brooke says she is not going to allow Thomas back on her property, and she might even get a restraining order. And of course, Ridge just thinks she's being absolutely ridiculous. He doesn't get it. Like, he cannot see her side of it, and she is having a hard time seeing his side of it, and that's the problem. He tells her real quick that she cannot keep Douglas from Thomas. But she thinks she can, and she will. And that's how Wednesday ends. So that brings us in to Thursday. The show opens at Brooke's house with Ridge and Brooke, and their fight is continuing and it's escalating. Ridge does not think they should exile Thomas. They should help him. Brooke thinks they should get a restraining order, and Ridge is really pissed and shocked. She thinks that Thomas is not fit to be a parent, and Ridge wants to let Thomas stay with them so that they can help him. He thinks they can all work it out as a family. Brooke is not having any of it. They're both yelling. She's crying. Ridge is getting really frustrated. So Brooke accuses Ridge of burying his head in the sand, and that sends him over the edge. And he's about to say something really mean, like she pushed him off the cliff and doesn't care if he lives or not. But before he can get it out, he says, you know what? I'm going to leave before I say something I'll regret. And he walks out the door and slams it. So Brooke is really upset. She's crying. She's wishing that he wouldn't have just left. And guess who shows up to talk to her? Shauna. The one person besides Flo she does not want to see. So, of course, Shauna shows up to talk to Brooke about forgiving Flo. And I'm like, are you crazy? Like, what is wrong with you? It's only been like 2 weeks. Of course they're not going to forgive Flo. At least not right now. So Shauna gets an attitude with Brooke. And she really thinks that Brooke and Hope should just forgive Flo. Like, are you serious? Flo stole a baby. It's not like she was late for dinner or she lied to them about something small. She helped steal a baby. They're not going to forgive her like that. It's just not going to happen. So, as you can imagine, Brooke tells her, never. It's not going to happen. She will never forgive Flo. And this makes Shauna mad. And she says, look, Thomas is the evil one. Really? And Brooke is just not having it. She's like, are you kidding? And then the greatest thing that has happened in a really long time happened. We had a Stephanie moment, and I loved it. So Brooke looks straight at Shauna and says, you know what? Oh no, Flo is just a tramp from Vegas. I loved this. If you're new to the show, Stephanie, Ridge's mother, used to always say to Brooke, "You're nothing. You're just a slut from the valley." And that's what she always used to say to her. So I thought this was so funny. Then Brooke continues. Flo almost ruined Hope's life, and there's no coming back from that. The best thing that they can do is leave. And then she says, "Go on, get out of here." And she's yelling. Brooke actually pushes her. "Go on, slither away." Then she pushes her again and tells her not to ever come back to her house. And she slams the door in Shauna's face. And Shauna is like shocked and rolls her eyes and then leaves. So Brooke tries to call Ridge again, but he's not answering, of course. Now we head over to Spencer with Wyatt and Flo. Flo is trying to explain to Wyatt how sorry she is and how she plans to prove to everyone that she can be trusted again. And Wyatt cannot forgive her because he cannot get over the lies. He just can't get his head around what she's done. He is disgusted with her. And Flo begs him not to hate her. Now we head over to Bikini Bar. Ridge is at the bar getting drunk. And guess what? Carter alert. We finally get to see Carter. Everyone knows Carter's my favorite. Ridge is getting drunk and he's ignoring Brooke's calls. And guess who shows up? Carter. We also got to see Danny, the bar manager / model. Carter comes in and he tries to find out what's going on with Ridge. But of course, Ridge does not want to talk about it. But Carter is a good friend and he's trying to help him. He urges Ridge to answer Brooke's calls. But of course he won't because he's mad. Ridge thinks that Brooke is trying to break up his family. And he tells Carter, and by the way, he's slurring his words and he's pretty drunk. And Carter is trying to make sense of what he's saying. He's drunk and he's slurring his words. So Carter's trying to piece everything together. And Ridge tells him that he can forgive Brooke for pushing Thomas off the cliff, but she can't forgive Thomas for what he did to Hope. Carter tries to help Ridge. He wants to take him home because he's very drunk. But Ridge throws a fit and he starts yelling that he doesn't want to leave. He wants to stay and he wants Carter to leave him alone. So Carter doesn't want to upset him anymore. So he goes and talks to Danny. And Danny assures Carter that he will not let Ridge drive and he'll make sure that he's alright. So Carter reluctantly decides to leave. Guess who shows up? Shauna. And I'm like, great. She shows up, she sees Ridge, and of course she's right on top of him. And she's so appreciative for what Ridge has done for Flo. He's so forgiving. And I'm like, no, he's not. Okay? He didn't do it for Flo. I don't know how many frickin' times he said that. And that's how Thursday ends. So that brings us into Friday the 13th. The show opens at Brooke's and she is worried sick about Ridge. She doesn't know where he is or what he's doing, if he's alright or not. He's ignoring her texts and calls. And then Katie stops by to see Brooke. She tells Katie all about the fight. And even though it was bad, ultimately she loves Ridge and she knows they can work it out. He just has to come home. She also thinks that Ridge can't be objective when it comes to Thomas, and I agree. She tells Katie that she also got in a fight with Shauna. earlier. And she is over Shauna and Flo. She has had it with them. Katie is worried about how Hope and Liam will react to hearing the news about Flo and her deal. Me too. I am also curious how Steffi's going to react. Brooke is really concerned about Ridge. She just wants him to come home. I'm going to tell y'all something. I get it. Because I don't play that. If my husband left and did not come home all night, he did not come home until the next day, when he got home, I would not be there. Guarantee you that. Now we head over to Spencer Publications with Wyatt and Flo. Wyatt does not hate Flo, but he also can't forgive her either. He does not want to hurt her, but he has to be honest because it's the way he feels. Flo is hoping that they will have another miracle and one day he will give her another chance and be able to forgive her. Really? She is determined to prove Wyatt can trust her again, no matter how long it takes. And guess what? Crack in the door alert. Through a crack in the door, Sally is listening to Flo's speech, and she does not like it one bit. Wyatt leaves because he has to go handle a client, and Sally walks in to confront Flo. Sally is not happy that Flo is there to see Wyatt, and she lets Flo have it. She tells her exactly what she thinks about her. She's a liar and a con woman, and she hurt Wyatt. And that she better forget about a miracle with Wyatt because it's not going to happen. She already got her miracle. She got out of prison. Now we head over to the bikini bar with Ridge and Shauna. Shauna tells Ridge that Brooke can be mad all she wants, but she's so grateful to him for helping her. Blah, blah, blah. She is delusional. Guys, she is. She actually thinks that Ridge didn't fight the deal because he forgives Flo. Come on. Even in his drunken stupor, he tells her that he has not forgiven Flo. That he did it for Thomas. And I'm like, really, Shauna? Do you just not hear people when they speak? So Shauna then proceeds to badmouth Brooke. And Ridge does not like that. He's like, no, you're not going to talk about my wife. So he gets up to leave and he falls right back down onto the bar stool and he literally passes out. I mean, blackout drunk. He doesn't even know what's going on. So Danny and Shauna are trying to figure out what to do with him. And Danny says, look, there's a room above the bar. He can stay in there and rest and lay down, whatever, until he sleeps it off. And Shauna's like, okay, that's a good idea. So they take him upstairs to the room, and Ridge is blackout drunk. He is just gone. And Shauna decides to take Ridge's clothes off and put him in bed. I felt this was unnecessary. She could have put him in bed, took his shoes off, and that would have been sufficient. Okay? In my opinion, that would have been sufficient. So she puts him in the bed, and he asked her to stay, and then he passes out again. So of course, she's like, oh my God, he asked me to stay with him. So Shauna starts rubbing his head, and she tells him he's so amazing and so forgiving, and he would never treat her like Brooke did. Really? Really? Don't you remember, 2 weeks ago when he was throwing you out of his house and arresting Flo? Seriously, Shauna? Oh, I can't handle it, okay? I just can't handle it. Because he only did this for Thomas. She just doesn't get it. Then she kisses him on the frickin' lips and lays down and cuddles with him. And I'm like, that is gross. I will not say any names, but I know girls like this. Okay, he's married. Do the right thing. Call his wife. to come get him. Get him a taxi. I'm so old. Get him an Uber, okay? And send him home. Like, you don't cuddle in the bed with him and take his clothes off and kiss him. He is married. I don't like it one bit. And that's how Friday ends. So that brings us into Monday, the 16th, which is today. The show opens at Brooke's, and she is super upset. It's the next morning, and she's in her robe, and she is worried sick about Ridge. She's trying to call him, and of course he's not answering. So Eric stops by to see Ridge. Brooke, of course, tells him he's not here. Then she tells him about the fight and how he never came home last night. Eric tells her not to overreact. He will come home. Eric is forever the voice of reason. I don't know what these people would do without him. So then Brooke is really concerned because the fight they had, they've never had a fight this bad where Ridge has stayed out all night and didn't come home without at least calling. And Eric says, you know what? Let's talk about it. So he tries to help. He wants to help Brooke see the situation from all sides, from Ridge's, from Thomas's, from Hope's, and he made a really good point. It's not all Thomas's fault. Everyone was grieving. Hope was grieving. Liam was grieving. Douglas was grieving. Maybe she should try to show some compassion for Thomas. It's very hard to do, okay, because I've been trying to do it myself, but it's not easy to do. I do think Thomas was messed up from the trauma of losing Caroline and how it happened so suddenly. I do think he was struggling with that. So basically he helps Brooke see Ridge's side. And he's like, look, you saying Thomas can't stay here is the same thing as you saying you don't trust Ridge. You don't trust him to take care of his son and to help him. She's not seeing how much Ridge feels responsible for what Thomas did. So according to Eric, Ridge is actually trying to fix it. He's trying to fix it the best way that he knows how. Because it's his son. And he can't turn his back on his son. Eric just wants Brooke to see that Ridge has to help his son. Brooke does regret not allowing Thomas to stay with them. She regrets some of the things that she said. And Eric assures her Ridge probably does too. And that he's okay. And he will come home. She just needs to give him some time and he will definitely come back home. Now we head over to the bikini bar upstairs with Ridge and Shauna. Ridge wakes up really confused. Why is he here? Where is he? He's totally confused. He's got a hangover and he probably regrets drinking so much. So Shauna explains everything that happened and she tells him that he's her hero, whether he likes it or not. See, guys? See what I said? Do you see what I said? Okay. She's starting to sound a little obsessed, and I'm like, okay, not another Thomas. So Shauna makes Ridge breakfast, but he is starting to panic a little bit. He wants to know what the hell's going on. He wants to know if Shauna went home to sleep and then came back. And she's like, oh no, I stayed with you. And now he's starting to freak out a little bit because he doesn't have pants on and his shirt's unbuttoned. And he's like, oh my God, oh my God. And he's like, wow, Brooke is not going to like this one bit. And he obviously feels really awkward. And to my surprise, Shauna tells him the truth, that nothing happened between them. The family jewels stayed locked in the safe. I'm going to be honest. I really thought she was going to say they slept together. I really, really thought she was going to do that. That was totally what I thought was going to happen. So I was very surprised that she told him the truth. Ridge wants to call Brooke, but his phone is dead. So he's going to use Shauna's charger. And I'm like, I roll. What the F? Go home. Don't worry about charging your phone. Just go home. Like, you can talk to her in person. This is ridiculous. He should not spend another minute with Shauna. I mean, it already doesn't look good. But they agree to never tell Brooke about their night together. Really, Ridge? Really, Ridge? I'm like, oh, these people, they never learn. Sure, she's gonna keep your secret. Sure. So, they agree to keep the secret. I'm gonna be honest, this was a really weird ending. He thanks her for not trying to cause trouble and for agreeing to keep the secret. And he says, you know, now I can say you're no longer a stranger since you did take my pants off. And they both smile at each other, and that's how Monday ends. It was strange. So that brings us to the end of the week and the beginning of this week. You know what that means? It's time for the rundown. Let's talk about Flo first. Flo is free, and I knew it. She made a deal, and I'm not at all surprised. I'm not sure, honestly, where the story is going from here, but it seems to be heading in a love triangle with Wyatt and Sally. I have zero sympathy for Flo. At least Thomas was grieving Caroline, but Flo, she just really has no excuse. It will take a lot for me to like Flo again. The thing that really bothers me the most is that if it wasn't for Douglas, she would still be lying now. That's what bothers me. You can't sit there and say how sorry you are whenever you would still be keeping the secret. Like, that's ridiculous. No, I'm not going to feel sorry for her. Now, let's talk about Sally. I like that Sally confronted Flo. I thought that was brave, and I thought it was really needed, to be honest. Sally is very smart, and she's protecting her heart because who knows what Wyatt will do next. He's very wishy-washy lately. I really hope he doesn't hurt her again, but I feel like that's going to happen. Wyatt. He is a mess. A straight up mess. In my opinion, he's so confused about how he feels in general. He keeps going from one relationship to another to another. He got with Sally right after he broke up with Katie. Or right after they broke up. Then from Sally right to Flo. And now from Flo right to Sally. Take a breather, dude. Damn. Like, go surf or something. Chill. I just don't know what Wyatt's thinking. Let's talk about Brooke and Ridge. I really hope that they can work this out. I feel really bad for Brooke. And now, instead of just being honest, Ridge is going to lie. And I'm like, really? Nothing happened. So just tell the truth. We all know when the truth comes out, no one will believe nothing happened because they lied. If nothing happened, why would you lie? I just don't know about this. I know it's a soap opera, but I really wish that they would let Brooke and Ridge just be happy and married. You can have tons of storylines in a marriage. They can still have marital issues, but come on, make them get over it. Like, make them work through it. I don't want to see another divorce. And they have a son, by the way. It's just really hard because I see both sides and I think they both have really good points. They're both trying to be good parents and protect their children. So this is a very sticky situation. And I immediately thought about Chelsea's words because Chelsea said, Brooke better watch her step and tread lightly when it comes to Thomas because that's Ridge's son. And those words are still ringing true right now, Chelsea. I think Brooke's overreacting a little, but not really. I can understand you don't want your daughter's stalker on the same property, but at the same time, he's not just some stranger. He's your stepson. It's not like you can just throw him out, right? You have to think about your husband's feelings too. Let's talk about Shauna for a second. I think she is going to take the secret and put it in the vault. And then when she wants something, or she needs something, or she wants to cause problems for Brooke, she's going to pull that out of the vault and she's going to threaten Ridge with it. No way she's just going to forget about the secret. No way. I love Denise Richards, but I really, really don't like Shauna. Ridge is so naive. If he really thinks that this secret is not going to come back to haunt him, because it is. Oh, it is. Let's talk about, last but not least, Steffi. I feel so bad for Steffi. She is going to be livid when she finds out Ridge agreed to Flo's deal without even asking her. Not only that, but Thomas also gets off the hook. And neither of them will be serving any jail time. I am devastated for Steffi because she is going to be livid, because you remember what she said. She said the only thing that brings her any solace is the fact that Flo is in prison and is going to rot there. Well, no, she's not. And it's unfair. In this whole situation, besides Hope, of course, Steffi is really getting the short end of the stick in this situation. And I feel horrible for her. I really do. I hope they bring some super hot guy on here and he falls madly in love with her and Kelly and she actually is happy for once. I really hope that happens. So that brings us to the end of the episode, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Please make sure you get in touch. I love to know what you guys are thinking about what is happening. You can get in touch with me at theboldandbeautifulpodcast.com. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I always put the links in the show notes to make it easier for all of you to get in touch. If you listen on iTunes, please leave me a 5-star rating and a review. It helps the business side of the podcast. Thank you again so much for listening. I'll be back in your ears in 2 weeks. Until then, bye guys.